Hi, everyone. This is Chris Grosso with the Indie Spiritualist podcast on Ram Dass's Be Here Now network. And my guest today is Craig Wedren. Craig, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a real sincere honor. I'm going to read your bio, and this will let listeners know a little bit of why I say that. Craig's work in this world has been a big influence of mine since the 90s and shaped so much of my life in various ways. So that said, let me read Craig's bio. And Craig first gained notoriety as the dynamic, multi-octave wielding frontman of Shudder to Think. With its eccentric song structures and complex time signatures, Shudder to Think would prove a significant influence on math rock, post-hardcore, and emo. Since the band wound down in the late 90s, Wedren has released a series of solo albums and related collaborative projects, and his music has become an essential part of some of film and television's most popular and lauded shows. Beginning with the soundtrack for the late 90s film High Art and First Love, last rites along with Shudder to Think bandmates, Craig's composing resume has gone on to include extensively working with director Lisa Cholodenko, The Kids Are All Right, and David Wayne, role models Wet Hot American Summer, and also The State, which you scored. And I didn't know that. And The State, I have such fond memories of watching that when I was in high school.
That was such a special show.
Oh, such a good show.
Right.
Anyways, Greg would go on to create evocative, decidedly contemporary scores for cultural touchstone films and television series, including The School of Rock, Laurel Canyon, Reno 911, Glow on Netflix, Fresh Off the Boat on ABC, Shrill with Hulu, New Amsterdam, NBC, and most recently, the wildly popular Showtime series Yellow Jackets, which big fan of right here. That score is such a good score too. Like it sets the tone so perfectly.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then additionally, for the last decade or so, Craig has been developing and performing Sabbath sessions, a meditative musical practice that draws from ambient choral and improvisational techniques, resulting in something between a sound bath and a full-on psychedelic journey. I agree with that. Craig, thank you so much for being with me today. So, I mean, that in and of itself, like I said before we hit record, so many different ways to go. And I didn't, like I said, I jotted some things down. I didn't map this out. I guess for me, when I learned that you were doing these Sabbath sessions, I didn't know that you had this long time, yogic and spiritual mindfulness practice. I think I had read somewhere along the way you've done TM and I'm guessing other paths or traditions or practices. So I guess I want to start there, because I've known you as Shudder to Think, which is a band I just absolutely love. And then again, scoring these films. And then I learned about that. And I believe your first Sabbath session, I don't know if it's 2020 or 2022, somewhere around there.
The first release was around then. I'm not really sure.
But and I know you do things live out in LA too, like these. So maybe we could start there since we're on the Ram Dass network.
Sure,
and
let's
tie this in. So please tell me a little bit about your spiritual journey. When did that start and what did that look like and how did it evolve for you?
I mean, I'm judging this purely based on what I assume to be your influences, like coming from sort of a punk rock, probably.
Yep.
Round, and then winding up in a more, I don't know, spiritual, for lack of a better word,
right,
exploratory, mystical ocean, I guess. And it's very easy to make it sound tidy in retrospect.
Sure.
So I don't want to make this sound as if it was always this way or the path was always clear, because it wasn't. It's only in retrospect that it seems to me, from this vantage point, and I'm 55 years old now, that most of the things I was attracted to, or a lot of the things I was attracted to as a kid, the big aha discovery moments were psychedelic or spiritual or mystical in nature. In Shudder to Think, lyrically, it was often, if not always, coming from dreams. So there's a lot of that kind of individual and collective unconscious, that playground.
Sure.
That was always I always felt like home to me.
Mm.
And even just bands when I was little, like The Residents or Sonic Youth,
Right.
or particularly in the 80s, the whole 4AD label with that first wave with like Cocteau Twins and Dead Can Dance. It was all transcendent music in different ways. I mean, some of it, in the case of The Residents, say, it is more trickstery and humorous. But as you start getting into noise, which my friends and I did when we were teenagers, be it Throbbing Gristle or Sonic Youth or whatever, there's a point at which, at least I realized, that it was more about transcendence, mind alteration, with or without substances. I mean, as a teenager, obviously, as a rock and roll kid and a teenager, there was experimentation going on, but that was almost beside the point.
Yeah.
Those were just another practice in a way. I didn't realize it at the time, and then it was only, I would say, in my 20s that someone just gave me a meditation book. I think it was a therapist that I was. I think it was a Jack Kornfield book.
Oh, sweet.
Probably.
Yeah.
Like the classic one, How to Meditate, I think is what it was.
Sure.
Right? I'm not sure if it was Jack Kornfield, but it was one of the biggies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I just read it in the van. I come from a family of strivers. Do you watch The Bear?
Oh, I started the first season recently because I was told you've got to watch it, and I see why. But I'm only like 2 or 3 episodes in.
So for me, it's like that show is very comforting because I grew up largely in Cleveland, Ohio, in a family of in almost like an overly loving, overly tight, sort of too much information family, of big overachievers and strivers and perfectionists. I come from people whose engines sort of run a little bit hot. And even as a teenager or maybe starting college, it was really clear to me that I needed to figure out some way to ground that tendency, because I felt like I was spiraling a lot internally. It didn't come across. I don't think any of my friends, or if I had met you then, I probably wouldn't seem that different than I do now.
Sure.
But inside, it was just there was a riot going on, and so I read this book and I just started meditating piecemeal here and there. I was living with a friend of the band's named Jesse Peretz, who directed the movie First Love, Last Rites. He used to be in the band Lemonheads, and he had taken a TM course. So I think I got a little TM from him and a little Jack Kornfield from the van. And it was just a hodgepodge that really coalesced when my wife was actually, she was working with a group to help implement meditation for PTSD and computer education, literacy education for Rwandan refugees, maybe 15, 20 years ago. And so the David Lynch Foundation, does a lot of amazing work in schools and in prisons and kind of all over the place. So she was talking to the David Lynch Foundation about maybe partnering up for this thing that she was doing. And so we got to take the TM course at a discount. It is a little bit expensive,
it is.
and which would have been a barrier to entry, but we had this in, and so I finally like locked my practice in, maybe 15 or 17 years ago, which was perfect timing because we were just about to have our one and only kid. So I was working, doing film and TV stuff, making records, and a first-time parent, and absolutely needed to regulate and just have a daily practice. So that happened, and it was around that time that I was really thinking a lot about where music comes from originally, the origin story of music. Well, what did we originally use it for? I and Shudder to Think and all of our friends who were in bands sort of witnessed the death of the 20th century version of the music business, right? Which, because we grew up in it, we just assumed that that was always the way it was and always the way it would be, which of course it was a blip. So I was thinking a lot about if I, obviously, aside from film and TV scores, which are have been wonderful just in terms of musical growth, musical exploration, collaboration. I'm a movie and TV nerd, so it all worked out beautifully. And on top of that, it's one of the only places that you can actually make a living making music.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was doing that, but still needing to make records and experiment and do all different, the reason that I love music is because it's free.
Yeah.
You can just do it. And so I was thinking a lot about the origins of music, and I was like, well, we started, vibration literally holds matter together.
Right.
Vibration, we're born with this instrument, our voices and our percussive instruments.
Yeah.
And musicians never made a penny, really, until the 21st century. So what were we doing? We were wandering around. We were making religious music or pagan music or psychedelic music, before it was a genre. I mean, plant inspired, revelatory, transcendent sound. And I was feeling pretty locked in by the deadlines and assignment-based work of film and TV at the time, which I love, but it needs to be balanced for me by the opposite, like total play.
Yeah.
And then they both feed into each other, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the dream, is that sweet spot. And it was kind of out of whack, I would say, back then. And I just felt in my bones that I needed to develop a new sort of musical form for myself. I didn't know what it was, and I happened to be going to Burning Man that summer, and I needed something to offer, and I didn't want to just bring like buttons or, drink umbrellas or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I know what I can do, because I've always, since I was a teenager, messed around with looping pedals, particularly with my voice. Mm-hmm. And looping technology, so looping pedals for viewers or listeners who don't know, it basically records whatever you play into it and then plays it back in a loop, and then you can stack other sounds on top of it. I've always been a big ambient music guy, and from to John Cage to Matmos, whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Same.
And I've always been a big vocal guy. And so I basically just brought kind of whatever janky looper I had around the house and a microphone to Burning Man and developed this practice where I would just kind of ride around on my bicycle with a little speaker attached, roll up to pieces of art in the desert or like temples or people's camps and see if anybody wanted essentially like a live improvised score.
Wow.
So it was pretty all over the map for a few years because, like I said, I do enjoy difficult music, and I find noise, free jazz, industrial music, John Cage type music, to be extraordinarily powerful when I'm in the mood, but it's definitely not for everybody.
Yes,
right?
agreed.
And so finding the balance between beautiful, cocoon-like, and challenging, like pushing the edges. Like it took me a while to figure out where the edge was that sort of did everything that I needed, but that was a gift, hopefully, an offering, let's say, for other people. So that's how Sabbath sessions developed.
Yeah.
And technology has evolved, right? And so loopers, I have like a 5-channel looper now, and the loops go on for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. So it becomes this sort of, the kind of way I describe it is if Brian Wilson were singing ambient Brian Eno, but it was all improvised. So stylistically not jazz, but coming from that free music space. That was a very long answer to your question, but that's where Sabbath sessions came from.
And I'm here for this ride. Thank you
cool.
for that.
Okay,
I am
cool.
so no, I'm very because I love, like I said, Shudder to Think, and I really deeply value and appreciate the Sabbath sessions. And thank you for sharing how you got from point A to point B.
Yeah.
There's so much I resonate with. I just turned 47, so pretty close in age, not too far off. But similarly, like, music at a very young age, even before I found punk and hardcore, skateboarding, Powell Peralta, stuff like that. And that led me to punk rock. And then, that was the 80s, and then kind of alternative, then more punk, then hardcore. And like you said, and I might have picked up on this, for me, I didn't see the thread at the time, or I didn't have the context in which, and I appreciate you said spirituality, it's a word, and that's, it is what it is, but I didn't have a context listening to certain things then that I do now. And I say that because I remember there's a band Snapcase, and a friend played them for me, and that was their first record. That was the first like hardcore record I heard. And I just remember this beautifully visceral experience hearing that, like, what is this? Yeah. And then fast forward 15, 20 years later, and I hear Krishna Das, and his music and the chanting, and the same experience cut right to my heart center. I'm like, whoa. And I think back to like bands like Neurosis and these cyclical long bands that I grew up loving. And I didn't realize that was like a meditative thing for me. I just didn't know what it was. So I resonate very deeply with what
and there's so many bands that are coming from the same place. Like I think of Swans or something.
Love Swans, absolutely.
It's all increasingly, it just all feels like one practice. Everything. Being a parent, doing Sabbath sessions, making pop songs, hanging out with my friends. It's just it's so porous, the boundaries between things, increasingly, especially with the sort of breakneck rate of change that we're all going through together.
Here,
the sort of accordion of time that we're experiencing. I just feel like everything is sort of falling into and becoming everything else, which to me is very musical. But that's what music feels like to me, and that's what transcendence or I don't know, even like non-duality in a certain way says to me.
Sure. Yeah. So, just speaking of music, it made me think when you're talking about origins. I'm reading a book and I can't remember the name. It's over there and I can't see it, but it's this beautiful love letter, such a poetic book to this guy. It became a New York Times bestseller, which made me very happy. But it's basically a love letter to a tribe called Quest. And it's so it's such the way this person writes, and I wish I could think of it off the top of my head, but the way he starts the whole book out tracing the origins of rhythm. And he takes it back to slave times and how they would beat on their chest, and when they would take certain things away, that's when they started using their body, and when they walked those lines, they were creating music to get them through that. And it was just wow, how it really is such a beautifully, monumentally incredible universal thing.
And it's interesting you mentioned tribe. I feel like they in particular cut so deep for people, almost not at a religious level.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for me, the De La Soul, all of that, but especially tribe. I had something about them. Let's see what else. TM. Yes. So I had the great fortune to interview David Lynch years ago, before we lost him, and what an honor that was. And Bob Roth, who runs that foundation, I don't know if your wife worked with him or not, but they gifted me a TM class to go in. Because it is expensive.
It's a lot of money. But they're doing such great things with it. I agree. Take the money from the people who have it.
Yes. And I agree. If you can afford it, and from what they do scholarships, and like me, for example, it was such a kind gesture. I'm glad. And I actually still, not all the time, but I use the mantra they gave me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's it's awesome. So, all respect to them and the work they do. So aside from that, are there other teachers or books in the spiritual realm? You mentioned non-duality that have deeply impacted you, or even non-traditional, because you said, it is one movement. I feel
absolutely. And of course, I won't be able to think of them off the top of my head.
Sure,
it's like going into the record store and forgetting all the records that you want to get.
Yeah,
but I was just listening to Terence McKenna lecture earlier in the car. I was stuck in traffic for 2 hours, and I was like, I'm going to put on Terence McKenna, which always, speaking of inspirational tricksters, he particularly these last few years, where it's, for me anyway, really easy to get to sort of feel like this sort of constriction is happening with the news and the world and the schedule and family and so I really appreciate people who almost instantly, in the case of Terence McKenna, kind of help me widen out and remind me of that there are always forces at play, most of which we have no clue about. We're just not equipped.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Which is great. And that's kind of a relief.
Yeah.
David Lynch actually is a huge inspiration for me. Aesthetically, but also philosophically and spiritually and humor-wise. And John Cage, I mentioned earlier, also. And then, of course, there are 1,000 books. I mean, Ram Dass,
Sure.
I remember my manager gave me Be Here Now. Be Here Now?
Yeah. First one, seminal book,
like an original pressing of it. I don't know, maybe at the end of the 90s or something. And it was, I was like, oh yeah, whatever, Ram Dass. As a self-respecting punk rocker from the 80s.
Course. Yeah.
It was easy to poo-poo the Ram Dasses and Terence McKenna's and everybody like that. And how wrong I was, happily.
Same. You know what I found is, it's interesting to me, and this goes back 20 years ago when maybe a little more, when I kind of stumbled onto this path of spirituality, was I found a lot of like punk rockers and hardcore people, particularly drawn to like Eastern traditions, whether it was Vedanta or Buddhism or even some Gnostic Christianity, Sufism. And it makes me think of, there was a friend of a friend said once about like the punk and hardcore scene, and his eyes, it was, and I don't remember the exact quote, but something to the effect of like the search for something like with, God, I wish I remember the exact quote, but for something deeper in a world like increasingly devoid of it, something like something more than what mass media is throwing at us.
Yeah, of course.
And so to me, it makes perfect sense that I'm meeting people like that, later on get drawn to different paths and traditions and teachings.
Yeah, of course. And we were drawn to that, the sheer force of volume, the wave crashing of volume in punk and hardcore was profound.
Yeah.
Combine that with the sort of tribal communal aspect, and it's going to attract young seekers before they know that that's what they are.
Yeah.
Because, we were all just growing, I don't know about you. I was growing up in the suburbs and, so you would know, but you mentioned it earlier, every once in a while, something will just hit you and it's like a clue to yourself. It's like a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
And so I'm always open to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like increasingly I have practices just to, to remain open or to not get stiff around it.
Yeah. And so what does that look like for you today, where, you're composing, you're doing the Sabbath sessions? I know you teach and you do those live. Shudder to Think is playing again, which I definitely want to talk about that. I know but I think Riot Fest, I saw you're playing. It's like, oh my God, please come to the East Coast. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there.
We're coming in. Where are you?
I'm in Connecticut, but I will drive anywhere on the East Coast. So
we're playing in New York, Boston, and DC at the very least in, I think, late October, like October, maybe November, something like that.
Were the dates released yet? Because I
no.
Okay. Well, then cool. I will keep on my radar.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will be there. So, gosh, So what I'm saying is, with all these different like hats you kind of wear, and respectively, yes, like you said, it's all kind of like, it is not kind of interconnected. What is your practice? If you even have a formal practice look like, or is life your practice? Like what? Yeah. Where are you at?
It depends what's going on, but it might kind of, when I'm firing on all cylinders, let's say, I'll get up, meditate first thing. That generally I always do. Meditate, exercise, be with the family. And then I have a few like improvisation practices that I love to do first thing in the morning. One is just writing 3 pages, just free writing.
Wow.
And another one is to just before, like, sometimes I won't meditate first thing. I'll just go downstairs, make myself a little coffee or matcha, walk out on the deck in the sun, pick up a guitar and just play for 5 minutes wherever my fingers go.
Wow.
And that's a real loosener, opener up. And it's also hilarious because of how awry it can all go. And that's part of it too, is the laughing, the requisite laughter about all of it. It's so messy.
Yeah.
And inconsistent seeming. And yet when I think about it, I'm like, oh no, I actually have things I do every day. And even just like walking up the hill, taking breaks from work, or like swimming laps underwater in the pool. It's all these little grounding techniques that I don't necessarily think of as such, but that's the effect that they have. And then just getting to make music all day, especially with friends and collaborators so long as, I mean, obviously sometimes this one's stressed or there's tension, creative or otherwise, and that's just natural. But in general, the playground of my work, the sandbox of it, is pretty regulating, I would say. It's funny. I literally, right before we started talking, I've been programming playlists, and now I'm starting to write original music for some friends of mine who have a ketamine therapy clinic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's called Kanopy with a K.
Okay.
And I was just like, I don't know if I want to program playlists. I think we need original music for this.
Yeah.
And it's almost, it's hilarious and profound how much I've been beating myself up about it, which I don't do generally working on movies anymore, or working on TV shows anymore, or working on songs. I mean, I'll go through things, but it's like that delicious chew toy process.
Yep.
But with this, I have to imagine it's part of the medicine,
Sure. Yeah.
Like it's sort of somehow shoving my nose into my own doo-doo in a way that really I don't think I've experienced in a while. So as much as I have all these wonderful sort of leavening practices, I sometimes wonder how much evolution there is or has ever been. It's a sort of,
yeah.
I don't really know. I don't know that it matters either.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I find myself, and it's been like an ongoing 2-year existential crisis to a certain extent of, what is really going on and questioning but it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. But I'd be remiss if I didn't, talk a little bit more about that soundtrack or the music you're working on. That's incredible. For the ketamine, I don't talk a lot about it. I've talked a little bit on the show if it comes up, but I'm a person in recovery from alcohol. Nearly took my life a couple times, and I had a relapse a few years ago where I checked myself into a psychiatric hospital twice over a 3-month period because my life had gotten to probably the darkest place I'd ever been, and I was nervous about it. They ended up giving me 3 rounds of oral ketamine treatment.
Oh, wow.
And I will tell you, it saved my life. And I've worked with that medicine since then, with a provider and with integration sessions. And I perked up when I heard what a cool idea that you are writing this music, because that is an integral part of my journey. And I make my own playlists with like Sia Rose or Mum, this Icelandic ambient music, and maybe Krishna Das. But how cool. And some of the Sabbath stuff has made its way in there too.
Oh, yeah. I'm honored. That's wonderful.
Oh yeah. No, it's
cool.
It's a wonderful compliment to the experience. But that's so amazing that you're doing that. And would that be something that's just kind of specific to their center, or is that something?
No, I think I'll probably release it with the name of the center in the sort of label title, whatever, so that it can all feed into each other.
Yeah, how exciting!
There's sort of a fledgling business and trying to figure out what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. I know sometimes it gets a bad rap that, ketamine, and understandably, because like anything, it can, if not used properly, have adverse effects. But for those who use it properly, which I'm one of, like life-saving stuff. And psilocybin too, and studies on other things. It's an exciting time in that regard to be alive for people that live with mental health
I agree.
stuff. Yeah. So that's great. So
and then I've also been with my pal Jarek Bischoff, who's a musician and composer. He's actually playing bass in the current version of Shudder to Think. He and a drummer, an incredible drummer named Jacob Richards, and I have a band called Flesh Power, which is an all improvised music band. but we started doing a thing where we would offer our services for all different types of occasions, and then just improvise music, like using the whatever prompts the hosts of the party give us, or whatever it feels. We did like Halloween last Halloween in the driveway of my friend's house while they were giving out candy. We've done several psilocybin ayahuasca ceremonies where we'll do like 7 or 8 hours of just straight improvised music. And so there is this whole world. I mean, it's kind of the most, well, actually, the new Shudder to Think stuff is really amazing and exciting and
But we're
mouth-watering.
going there in a second. So, yeah. Oh,
But this other stuff, this improvised music for different, it's almost like creating live score for a situation, and particularly doing it in conjunction with psychedelic therapy has been among my favorite, not just musical, but experiences.
Yeah.
And I wonder, maybe that's why this has been hard working on this ketamine music, because I'm doing it in a sort of solitary way in front of the computer.
Yeah.
It doesn't have this sense of elasticity.
Right. Yeah.
Or the music does, but the process doesn't.
Right. Yep. I see. Yeah.
So anyway,
I'm super excited to see where that goes. And
me too.
My gosh. All right. So I mean, I'm trying to like be here and watch this clock, and time is going by way too quick. But so Shudder to Think. All right.
Yeah.
I wish I could say that I was into the band when it was like the Discord era, and I came later with Hitlicker, and I will never forget though hearing that. And I was into bands like Drive Like Jehu at the time, and like the noisy dissonance stuff, and around that time, and I hear that, and I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's the chords are like, the timing's weird, your voice over it, the production was, even at a young age, like I appreciated good production, like the sound was incredible. And somehow, like, I think you're on Epic at that point, maybe. It's like, how is this like mainstream? Amazing, but like, how is this?
Indeed.
What the
was
fuck?
like a trick. It was a little trick.
So yeah, like, can you take me back there and just talk a little bit about like the Discord and how that happened? And
sure.
I do remember, like, that song Made It to Beavis and Butthead, and I actually, it's funny in retrospect, but at the time, and I like that show. Mike Judge is great, but I'm like, fuck you, Beavis and Butthead. This is amazing.
We took it as a compliment.
I hope you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were like, that's the, if it's not your absolute favorite thing that you've ever heard and change your life and change the world, that's the response. That's the second best.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So, all right, that's it. Yeah. If you can walk me through like some of that, and then you guys are playing it. I saw a video, a little clip, like, tell me about that. And I didn't know you were writing new stuff, which so excited to hear. So please, wherever you want to go with that.
So I grew up in Cleveland, moved to Washington, D.C. in 11th grade. And in fairly short order, auditioned for this hardcore band that became Shudder to Think. It was pretty immediately apparent that the combination of my singing style and the music that they were making had the potential to be something really unique. Yeah. And the other guys in the band were all, musically omnivorous, really, really smart. So as much as we were all sort of coming from, and in certain ways, being teenagers, locked into this kind of underground scene, there was a sense, conscious or unconscious, that like something special was under the hood, and we just needed to sort of like tinker with it for a while.
Yeah.
So we did. It took we were kind of an anomaly in DC for a couple of years, but gradually people started coming around, and also it took us a while to figure out what we were doing. And for me, frankly, to just like chill out a little bit with the way, my sort of like histrionic vocal stuff that
Sure.
back to the family that I come from, it was like, well,
Right.
if you're not getting attention, you just need to push harder,
Yeah,
which is
sure.
not always the best prescription. And so it took us a couple of years, and then people started coming around. And Amanda Mackay, Ian's little sister, went to my high school, as did Nathan Larson, who is the lead guitar player in Shudder to Think, but was not in the first during the Discord years.
Sure.
Right? He joined right before we signed to Epic Records. So. But he and I were, best friends in high school. So we were making all this weird experimental loop-based ambient, electronic, whatever music, industrial. And then I had this band and he had his bands. And Amanda had a literally sister label to Discord called Sandwich. And she offered to put out our first record, which we were thrilled that anybody wanted to put anything out. And so we put our first record with her, and then Ian, who runs Discord, just kind of got into it. Started showing up at shows. We all became friends. It kind of, it just took a minute. It takes a minute for Shudder to Think for people. It just isn't like other bands. Which was very much what we loved about it, and the sense that we had in the first rehearsal that we did, even during my audition, it was like, wait a minute, this is something strange and cool happening here. And so by the time we put out our first Discord record, we kind of had we kind of had our game together, and the shows were particularly special, and we were all very ambitious. I was particularly ambitious. It just kind of very naturally, I'd been singing in band since I was about 12, and it was like this very, very slow wave, right? That went all the way through Shudder to Think. Started with bands that I was singing in when I lived in Cleveland, carried over into some preliminary stuff in DC, became Shudder to Think. Shudder to Think kept evolving. And then, after Nirvana broke, it just was like kind of a feeding frenzy for a couple of years in terms of major labels looking for the next big alternative band. We had a very, very passionate fan base. It wasn't huge, but it was like consistent and rabid. There was just like this. Again, there was a transcendence at play, which I think a lot of which comes from Discord and the DC punk rock scene, particularly Revolution Summer, which was 1985, which was when Rites of Spring and Embrace, all of these sort of like proto-emo bands, but not emo in the way that we think of emo now.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, between Rites of Spring and Bad Brains, Eye Against Eye, it was sort of like energetically and even aesthetically kind of a template for us, or certainly like a catapult. And so our shows were very they were just powerful, and everybody was there for it. And so when you have that kind of circuit happening between, performer and audience, it's one cell. And so A&R people, including the guy who wound up signing us to Epic, at Eddie Vedder's behest, actually, because he had signed Pearl Jam.
Hmm.
And Ed was a fan of, I don't know if he was a fan of the whole album Get Your Goat, which was our final Discord record,
Yep.
or mainly this one particularly pretty song called Pebbles that's on it. Which, interestingly, when I think of Pebbles, the guitar part, it's very kind of mantra or koan-like.
Yeah.
I can't quite tell where it begins or ends. It's there's a deliciousness to it, like it engages the listener. It's not pat, I guess,
Right.
but it's still real pretty. And so Ed really liked that song. Told Michael Goldstone, their A&R guy, that he should come see Shudder to Think. And I remember afterward, he was like, "Listen," he started showing up at shows and traveling to shows. Which, when A&R people would like travel, it would like to show, it would like show that they were serious, like bringing flowers on a date type thing. And so I remember he took us out after some, I feel like he came up to Toronto or something like that, took us out after the show and was like, "I'm not going to lie to you, I don't totally understand what you're doing musically, but I'm a really good A&R guy, and I totally understand the relationship that's happening between you and your audience, and I just want to help you build that." And we were like, "Cool, great. Most of what we played is our new record." And that was Pony Express record, what would become Pony Express record, which was for sure the most difficult collection of songs that we had ever made. Aggressively not Nirvana, let's say.
Right.
As much as we all loved Nirvana,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Not pop music in the traditional sense.
Right.
And so we were like, if you're cool with us making this, like, we're going to make this record. If you want to help us do that, we would love nothing more. Because, Michael Jackson, Cheap Trick, and The Clash are all on Epic Records too.
Right. Yeah.
Not to mention Pearl Jam. He had signed Pearl Jam and Rage Against the Machine. So we're like, this is the dream. This is amazing. And, the dream lasted a little while.
Sure.
as dreams do.
That's right. Yeah.
And so basically that's what happened. So, suddenly we had this machine behind us. It was tough to leave Discord. We love Discord and we love Ian. Ian was not thrilled with us. We're all good now, but like it was, it was a bummer.
Yeah.
And although I have to say, to all of our credit, we were never anything but totally transparent about it.
Awesome.
And personally, I never had that punk rock thing of you got to keep it small. My feeling was always, I want the most people who would love this music to hear this music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And making it literally to connect with people.
Right.
So like, why wouldn't I want the most amount of people who are into this music?
Yeah.
So it was never a thing for me. Other members of the band had sort of different political views or ethical views about jumping to Sony, which is what Epic was a part of, which I totally respect and understand. So suddenly we were part of, the big bad music industry, and, touring with all sorts of amazing bands, Smashing Pumpkins, Pavement, Foo Fighters, Pearl Jam. And, and then it started getting kind of dark and difficult interpersonally. Nathan had joined the band at that point, and he and I had always been so close and still are. But there was so much overlap, just in terms of our sensibilities and kind of both being front person personalities, which was what made the chemistry so good, but also made it very, very difficult, just in that classic, boring, young men in their 20s, climbing and clawing and vying for attention and, primacy.
Yeah.
So, and at a certain point in there, speaking of, looping back to the beginning of our conversation, where I was talking about a family that really goes hard and of overachievers and perfectionists, never enough. I was really grinding my gears and overheating the engine. You wouldn't know it to hang out with me. And I was always really healthy, like exercise, meditate, lots of green juice. But I was diagnosed, I started feeling awful physically, and then was diagnosed with cancer, which really put the brakes on Shudder to Think, briefly. And also, or I should say, it didn't put the brakes on Shudder to Think, but it just like forced us down, right? It brought us back down to earth, reminded us what's important, each other, this music that we get to make, gave us a chance to write our final record for Epic and to start reconfiguring the band as maybe a film composing unit or sound house or something that maybe could become film, TV, Shudder to Think records, tour or play shows when we wanted to, produce and write for other people. Something that's pretty normal now.
Yeah.
At the time didn't make any sense to the record label.
Right.
Like, don't you see how this could be great for everybody? And they were like, no, we don't. Yeah. Just give us a hit. Something we can work at radio. We're like, oh, that's kind of the one thing that I don't know if we can do.
Yeah.
We just didn't know how to do it yet,
Yeah.
And so, it was sort of too little too late. And then the band hit pause, and we spent the last 25 years falling back in love. And I was joking with a friend of mine yesterday that it's like a dream. They say you have your entire life to write your first record, but then you only have 1 year to write your second, third, fourth record.
Yeah.
But then since we stopped playing in 1999 or 8, I've had another lifetime to write stuff for the new Shudder to Think record. Because when I pick up a guitar, it's just what I write, you know?
And so you mentioned, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. I appreciate it. And I'm sure there's so much more you could talk about, but for the sake of time, I appreciate that. So new Shudder to Think material, is it new to listeners? But if I'm hearing you, it's stuff you've perhaps been writing over the last several years, or
it's more just so I'm making music all day, every day.
Sure.
Invariably, there's a guitar in my lap at some point. Oftentimes, I'll have an assignment. Let's say, right now, I'm working on a new David Wayne, Ken Marino movie, right? So it's they're from the state and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. Love those guys, dude.
Amazing. And it's a comedy, and it's absurd, hilarious, wonderful, heartwarming comedy. So, I'm not writing Shudder to Think music for this movie. But when there's a guitar in my lap and I'm working on this thing, it's not always... What pops out is not always the right thing for what I'm working on. And so I'm always kind of listening for, oh, that's not for this, but that sounds like it could be a really good Shudder to Think song, right? And so I'll just really quickly, even on a voice memo on my phone, or if I'm recording into Pro Tools, I'll just do a quick recording of it and just throw it in a folder. And then every time I'm working on a solo record, I sort of go through whatever ideas are lying around and see what's compelling to me. But on all of my solo records, there are a couple songs that for sure are Shudder to Think songs, although usually not done in a Shudder to Thinky way. But in general, I never felt like it was over when we stopped playing in the 90s. I was like, this is pause. We'll see what happens. Maybe never again, but it doesn't feel like never again. It feels like for sure again. We just all have to live our lives and raise our kids and get over ourselves and get over each other and all this stuff. Lock down our meditation practices.
Right.
Nathan has a big spiritual practice too, or meditation practice of like Tai Chi and yoga and is it pronounced Qigong?
Qigong. I've heard it different ways.
Qigong,
yeah.
So he's really transformed himself, or has transformed. Not that he wasn't always great. No, he wasn't always great. Sometimes he was.
We're to be human, right?
Yeah. I've not always been great.
Yeah.
So anyway, so every year or two, I would just sort of reach out to the band and be like, anybody? Bueller? And usually it would be like, yeah, this stuff, that riff is so cool. And I would just like send whatever. But it just never quite puzzle pieces until this last year. And suddenly everybody was on board again. And it was very sudden. I got a text from Jarek who was like, when are you going to do a reunion and let me play bass? And Adam Wade, the drummer from Pony Express record, took me out to lunch. He's like, dude, I don't care if it's called Shudder to Think. We need to be playing these songs. Like, let's just work on new songs and play a show. We can call it a new band. It doesn't matter. Let's just continue the work that we started. Great. And then there's this guitar player, a wonderful guitar player and friend named Clint Walsh, who actually played with the Discord band Scream for a while.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, great, I just want to be singer frontman guy and not play guitar. So Clint's playing guitar, and then Nathan, I think in large part because his son, so Nathan married Nina Persson from the band The Cardigans.
Yep.
They've been living in Sweden, raising their kid. But she's a massive rock star there. And so I think Nathan, I don't want to speak for him, but I got the sense that he felt like, oh yeah, we did that when we were younger. Now we're in our lives.
Sure.
And then his son turns out to be a total shredder. He's like 14 or something like that, 13 maybe. And Shudder to Think obsessive. So he was like finding YouTube videos, things that Nathan didn't even know existed, and being like, Dad, you got to check this out. This is like Philly, 1991, whatever. And I think it just sort of like dusted off or opened up some cupboards for Nathan.
Yeah.
And then it was like, let's do this. He had some health issues. We've all had our health issues.
Right.
And the general feeling was, not only are we alive, but we love each other.
Yeah.
And like, we've got all this amazing potential new music. Like, let's get in a room and see what happens and document it. Let's make like a documentary. Let's make a record. Let's try to make a record, document it, see what that is, and see what happens. We really didn't know. And we got into the room. We didn't book a show. We didn't do anything. We're just like, let's see if we like this, how this feels. Because there's no other reason to do it at this point. And so we got in a room, and within 10 minutes, we were like, oh, this shit is on. It is so good. We've all been playing music all day, every day since we broke up. So it's like, there's less ego, there's no fuss, it's less precious, and there's just like ideas and laughter and warmth. It's beautiful.
I love hearing that. I want to ask, because you said, you put it out over the years and not much of a response. this last year, it seems like everybody came together.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to? Do you think it has anything to do with the state of the world now? I know you said, yes, you're older.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's internal and external stuff.
Sure. Okay.
Family stuff. The kids are all right? We're not like trying to keep them alive on a daily, hourly basis.
Right.
So like the kids are okay. Nathan went through some health stuff which I think cracked him open, and in conjunction with his meditation practices and musical practices, and it just all the puzzle pieces had been there maybe for the last decade, but it's like, you know how if you have a jigsaw puzzle piece, you can see that it goes with this piece, but if it's facing the wrong way because of the wind or whatever reason, it's like, they won't go together. You got to wait till it gets to the right place. And I think for all of these reasons, macro and micro, it was like boom, 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 and then it was back on. If we had talked, I don't know, 4-5 months ago, even a week before we got back into a room together, I'd be like, I don't know, probably won't ever happen. Maybe we'll see something. But then it's just wild how clear it was, how instant it was, and how natural it's been, and how things can be like that sometimes.
Amazing.
I mean, I guess it's hard won because it's like everybody's been doing the work.
Yeah.
On every level.
Yeah.
Personally, interpersonally, musically, So it's not like we've been kicking back.
Yeah.
Or it's also not like we've been out of touch. I mean, we've worked together in various configurations, and so I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it's just been so easy and sweet.
Love that. Yeah. I just got together to my friends 2 weekends ago in New York. Hadn't played with the drummer since an album we recorded 20 years ago. Yeah. The guitar player, we stayed friends though. The guitar player is my best friend, and we hadn't played in a band together in 10 years. And just like you're saying, it's like, didn't skip a beat. I wrote like a 8-minute song like in a weekend, and it was like, wow, so this is still a thing. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So I understand what you're saying, how beautiful, and to do with people you love and you care about, and like that to me, that's what means the most. So then we're getting a new, at some point, Shudder to Think album and a documentary. Am I hearing you correct?
Yeah. So I think the plan is we're going to put out a single in the fall we're doing Riot Fest.
Yep.
Doing like just 3 or 4 East Coast shows, 3 or 4 West Coast shows. Yep. And then we'll probably, just because of everybody's lives and wives and jobs and stuff, it's going to take a minute to get it all together. For better, Shudder to Think isn't like garage music that you can just like get in and banging it out. It just takes a lot of digging in and like repetition and working out kinks and freaking the puzzle.
Yeah.
So it might take a minute, but so we're gonna put out a single this fall, a single in spring, maybe an EP, and then hopefully a full length a year from fall. Right, awesome. So fall 26, I guess.
Yeah.
And we've got. I mean, we literally had to shut the door full capacity of just songs that we want to work on for this record. Like, there's so many other ideas.
Wow.
But we were just like, if we just keep starting new ideas, we're never gonna let's just save this for the next one. So we're just like working on this bucket of awesome Shudder songs.
Amazing.
We've got a couple totally down and a whole bunch that are in various states of undress.
Awesome. So like Riot Fest, the few East and West Coast shows, expect to hear, some classic Shudder. Are you going to throw a couple new ones in there too?
Yeah. We'll play the new ones.
Yeah.
For
Cool.
sure, we'll play one of the new ones. The second new one, we haven't had a chance to rehearse much. We've mainly been working on the recording of it. So if it's ready, we'll play it. But we're always about playing the new stuff.
Yeah.
Although honestly, the old stuff feels so new again.
How cool is that?
And I think because it's Shudder to Think music, it doesn't feel retro at all. It just feels like, okay, now we're on this planet.
Yeah. I will put I'll put a Shudder song on, and it still to me sounds as, how do I word this, like as timely and timeless today as it did when I first heard it. Like yeah. It's
That's
like
awesome.
I don't want to I know it's like I'm blowing smoke here, but I have such a deep reverence. Like it's art to me. The stuff you guys put out there, music is art in general. I believe that, but when I listen to the way you guys create, it's like, wow, that's a fucking piece of art.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I mean that, and I'm so jazzed to hear that there's some new stuff on the way,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, and all your fans are going to be super excited, and new fans and new generations, and like Nathan's son. Like, how cool is
totally.
that?
Yeah, they're kids who are like getting into Shudder to Think. My son is into Shudder to Think.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't sit around listening to it. I think like Nathan's son maybe does. But it's really cool, and it feels fresh to them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is cool, interesting music. Look at that, internet. Not going to complain about all of it.
No, that's so cool. Well, so I think we're over on time, which doesn't matter to me. I just want to be respectful of the network and your time. There's so much more could have talked about. I love where this conversation went, though. Like, my heart feels very full and joyous. I appreciate it. But before we do go, was there anything I didn't touch on that you would feel remiss if you didn't bring up or say before we left? Or do you feel like we're okay?
I mean, I will think of at least 10 of them in about 10 minutes.
As will I. So
nothing comes to mind.
Okay. We'll have to circle back.
This was such a lovely conversation. I hope we can do it again. We can just keep going.
I love that. Yeah, and especially like maybe when the Shudder stuff's coming out. Well, I'm more than happy to do whatever I can to help on my end. So
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe we can even get Nathan in on it, since he has a lot to say about this stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like you would be a very apropos fit for this right up the alley. So that would be so cool. Well, until then, have a great time at Riot Fest.
Thank you.
Thank you for the way you show up in this world and what you contribute. It's like I said, it's definitely impacted my life and continues to. And I can't wait to hear about those dates on the East Coast. I'll be at least one of them for sure. So
okay, cool.
All right, Greg. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It was wonderful.
Thanks.
Take care.